Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video. And yes, you read the title, you know exactly what it is that I'm reviewing. And as I teased in the last review video, this film, it too celebrating its anniversary. And with the upload of this review video out the same day that this film is celebrating its anniversary, coming to theaters. That's right, guys. I am reviewing, and I've been looking forward to reviewing this film. That's right. I am reviewing from 2004, none other than this guy, Hellboy. Yes, Hellboy. The first movie adaptation of Hellboy. Hellboy, coming straight from the Dark Horse comics, and, well-known movie director, Guillermo del Toro. It took him, I think, like 6 or 7 years, that sounds about right, to get this movie made, because he fought and fought and fought with movie studios, producers, to get this done, and they were just asking him so many questions on the titled character. Does he have to be red? Can't you make him a human? Just ridiculous. Like, they didn't want to stay true to what this character is supposed to be. And I'm pretty sure because Mike, that's his first name, who is the creator of Hellboy, I'm pretty sure he was pissed off on what the producers and, movie studios were asking for, because, Guillermo and Mike, because they wanted to make this, even both of them, who they had in mind to play the titled character, and I read this, they said at the same time, Ron Perlman. Yeah, because nice to see that not just Guillermo, but Mike, he wanted Ron Perlman to play his creation, his baby. So, yeah, it's true. And eventually, around the early 2000s, and after the success of Blade 2 that Guillermo directed, well, sure enough, Hellboy did finally happen. It was given the green lit, and Guillermo, he was, another fun fact, he was offered to direct the next Blade film or direct the third Harry Potter film, but he chose Hellboy over those two films, and rightfully so. And not to mention, this was a dream project of Guillermo's, and for him to finally do it after, a couple of years trying to get this made. And not to mention, because both Guillermo and Ron Perlman, they did work together on a movie in the mid/late 90s, and, and obviously, because Guillermo, he had Ron Perlman in mind to play the titled character, and of course, he got Ron Perlman to play the role. And not to mention, because that's another thing, everybody, the producers and the movie studios, they were asking, why Ron Perlman? Well, because to Guillermo del Toro, and to us, as of now, Ron Perlman was the perfect choice to play Hellboy, and rightfully so. He fit the role like a glove, I tell ya. And besides, others who have played Hellboy, not just like live action, but, with voice acting, to me, and I'm sure that goes for everybody else, Ron Perlman will always be the one and only Hellboy. Yeah, so, and you guys can let me know too if, you feel the same way too. Oh yeah, okay, so with the movie itself, because they filmed it in 2003, and then, of course, it was released a year later in 2004, and, well, because obviously I can tell that, it did pretty well. Okay, but now, as always, read the description/the story. At the end of World War II, the Nazis attempt to open a portal to a paranormal dimension in order to defeat the Allies, but are only able to summon a baby demon who is rescued by Allied forces and dubbed Hellboy. 60 years later, Hellboy serves as an agent in the Bureau, I think I'm probably saying that right, of Paranormal Research and Defense, where he, aided by Abe Sapien, a merman with physic powers, and Liz Sherman, a woman with pyrokinesis, if I'm even saying that right, powers of fire, pyro, yeah, protects America against dark forces. Okay, so the film itself, well, it first takes place in 1944, near the end of World War II, and we get the introduction of a young Professor Broom, played by Kevin Trainer, and of course, with older Professor Broom, and, he does a bit of narration at the beginning, the late, legendary John Hurt. Yeah. And the actor they got to play young Broom, again, Kevin Trainer, he was a perfect choice, good/perfect choice, because I think he nailed it, and, being a young John Hurt, so, yeah. And the thing about young Broom is that he was like a paranormal advisor, I want to say, to the president at the time of 1944. Yeah. Well, because he's there with, the soldiers, and, they find where the Nazis are hiding, and again, because planning to open a portal to another dimension, and the main antagonist of this film, one of the main antagonists, which being, okay, where is he? Rasputin. Yeah, Rasputin. Where's Rasputin? Trying to find the actor who plays him. Okay. It's like I couldn't spot him. Yeah, Rasputin, played by Carol Roden, if I'm saying the first name right. And alongside with Rasputin is Isla, if I'm even pronouncing it right. Again, you know me sometimes. Huspent, yeah, played by Biddy Hodson. Might have gotten it right. And there's also Carl Rapret Corian, if I'm saying that right too. This one Nazi who has a mask and can summon blades out of his fists. Yeah. And they're there and, about to open, again, a portal to another dimension, and, just basically what they're doing is bringing chaos to the world and causing a apocalypse. Yeah. And sure enough, because, the soldiers and Broom, they stop them from opening it, and even, setting off 2 grenade bombs, and one of the, scientists is, because of the explosion, gets tossed into the portal, and giving us the Wilhelm scream. Yeah, nice to see that the Wilhelm scream made it in this film. And thus, chaos unleashes, all hell breaks loose, I should say, guns firing and such, and eventually the Nazis are defeated, and so is the 3 main villains, and again, one of them being Rasputin, because Rasputin put on this, glove to open the portal and to summon what was to come out of there. But unfortunately, because he got defeated, and he was pulled in there, even giving the love of his life, which being the girl, the Nazi girl, the ability to, live forever, and told her, to find him, and when the time comes, basically. So once again, they're all defeated, and, they do disappear, like the Nazi lady and, the one with the mask and the blades. Yeah, they both escape. But something did come out of that portal, And Broom discovers, and so do the soldiers, that, well, it's a little, like little baby red devil, you know? Even, like, they first call him an ape, a red ape, but, you know, clearly he's not a red ape. And they noticed his stoned hand. "Look at the size of that whammer," says the general. And Broom tells them that it is his hand. That is his actual hand, the stoned hand. And to get the little baby devil's trust, Broom pulls out Milk Baby. I think that's the name of it's this chocolate bar, and just telling the little baby devil that it's good, and thus he snatches it, and they get a blanket, and thus, everything's okay, and, Broom's telling the soldiers, it's a boy, it's a baby boy. And thus, well, a group picture, and, the little baby devil being in the picture, and thus they call him Hellboy. And we get, of course, the opening title of the film, and it's really cool because with the theme music playing to the movie and hearing news reports of apparent what's the word I'm looking for? Supposed sightings of Hellboy. Yeah, because in this film, because Hellboy being kind of like just like Batman, because because Batman and Hellboy, and that also goes for the Ninja Turtles, they share one thing in common, and that is they hide from civilization. See? Because, they would sometimes be seen, but still, and of course, we see the remaining Nazis, they find a certain location to bring back Rasputin, and thus they do, by killing someone and the blood pouring, and thus that, brings back Rasputin. And thus, they proceed on with what they were supposed to do many years ago, back in 1944, to, of course, open the portal and to summon what is to basically cause chaos and, an apocalypse. And we, of course, get our introduction of, older Professor Broom, again, played by the late legendary John Hurt, and there's a little hint and tease, I guess you could say, tease, that something's wrong with Professor Broom, because he was at a doctor's appointment, and they weren't sure if they wanted to tell him or not, but yeah, because I think they did tell him. And then we see, because, well, it's right now, because it's taking place during Halloween, trick or treat, oh boy. And Professor Broom, right before he heads back to, the secret location, he sees on TV that, FBI agent Tom Manning, if I'm saying the last name right, played by Jeffrey Tambor, he's on the news, and he's asked about, the sightings of Hellboy, and Tom made a good point, asking, why is every single photo, video always, out of focus and such? And yeah, he had a good point, and he told everybody on the news about, if Hellboy is real, everything else, and by telling them, there is no such thing. And Tom knew what he was doing, and of course, to keep it top secret. So then we get the introduction of a new member, which being John Myers, being played by Rupert Evans. John Myers, he transfers to, where he's at now, and, he's to basically help out Hellboy, kind of be his nanny and such. And to make sure, I guess, Hellboy doesn't get into trouble like last time because of, the previous supposed sighting of Hellboy. So, and we find out a little bit later why, he was out in public and he got in trouble for it. He got in trouble by his dad. So, and we also get the introduction of Abe Sapien, played by the one and only Doug Jones, and the voice of Abe in this being David Hyde Pierce, aka Niles Slim the Stick Bug, Dr. Delbert, the list goes on. Yeah. And fun fact, David Hyde Pierce, he has he's uncredited in this film, and there's a good reason why. He didn't want a credit for this movie because he felt that, you know, Doug Jones's performance as Abe Sapien was all his creation, and yeah, and that also means that David, you know, would have wanted them to have kept Doug Jones's voice in the film, but that would happen in the second Hellboy film, where David Hyde Pierce did not come back. He insisted that it should be Doug Jones, and, you know, rightfully so. I mean, there were a few times, maybe 1 or 2 times, where Doug Jones's voice was dubbed. I can think of, say, well, when he played, the Silver Surfer in, you know, the second Fantastic Four film, his voice was dubbed, but like, say, in Hocus Pocus, not at all. Nobody dubbed him. It was all him, and that was good to see. So, you know what, I mean, why was he dubbed? I mean, why was he dubbed in this and Fantastic Four? I mean, maybe there is a reason. I mean, if he didn't get dubbed in Hocus Pocus, then why did he get dubbed? I mean, you know, if you get what I'm saying. I'm sure there's a reason. I'll have to look it up, but yeah, I don't get why that had to happen for poor Doug. Also, another thing about the Bureau for Paranormal Research and Defense, if I did pronounce the first word right, it's short for BPRD. That's the short name, and that's what I'll go with, so yeah. So again, we get the introduction of Abe Sapien because, well, again, John Myers arriving, and again, he is to be Hellboy's nanny, and, you know, he walks into Professor Broom's office, and there's, you know, a water tank where Abe sometimes resides, and yeah, and Professor Broom gives a little, like, background on Abe's history and when he was discovered, and, like a card that, I guess, like, yeah, shows, like, you know, where he was located, I guess, you know, and, which being the day that Abraham Lincoln died, and thus that's how he got the name, Abe. So, yeah. I think, yeah, because he's, you know, Abraham Sapien, but Abe for short. So, yeah. It's pretty funny because, we see Professor Broom put in the water tank for Abe rotten eggs, because, well, I mean, he is a merman, so eating anything gross, you know, and thus being rotten eggs. So, yeah, and Professor Broom gives a little tour for John, and then up to when, you know, they arrive at Hellboy's room, and yeah, because we find out, because of the recent supposed sightings of Hellboy, well, he's locked up in his room, you know, he's grounded by his daddy, and they haven't been speaking for a little while, so, and then we also get one of the other members of the BPRD. I gotta remember that with the letters. The BPRD, Agent Clay, and Agent Clay being played by Corey Johnson. I've seen Corey Johnson in a couple of other films. I think, yeah, he's one of those actors that you would see in a lot of films, yeah. And Agent Clay was a pretty good character, until what happens to him later on, until I get to that. So, I think, yeah, because Agent Clay was looking after Hellboy, but now it's John's turn. And we see, because in Hellboy's room, he's got a lot of cats. He has a thing for cats. And he's got a lot of TVs in there, especially because, like, I think, like, because we see, like, he has Liz on one of the TV screens, and we see some of the comic books that are in there, and Hellboy's first lines, and, you know, being Ron Perlman, I hate those comic books. They never get the eyes right. All because they don't get his eyes right. I guess the rest of him is fine, it's just the eyes. I mean, I don't know, because if he finds the comics offensive on how they portray him, I mean, I don't know, because maybe in the movie, like, maybe the comic books, they betray him right, I guess? I don't know. But, I mean, they never establish it. And according to Agent Clay, because to them, like, he would be in his 60s, but, like in dog years, he's barely out of his 20s, according to Agent Clay. And Agent Clay gives John a heads up not to stare at his cut horns, and, and since he polishes them, smooths them, and to fit in with society, basically, And also John was given these 2 candy bars to give to Hellboy and to, start to like John. But it doesn't go too well. Like, throughout most of the film, things between John and Hellboy, very mutual. And then, not long after, because, Hellboy and Abe, they're called in on a mission to investigate what happened at this museum. Yeah, it is a museum. And them, disguising and, keeping the civilians from seeing Hellboy and Abe, using this, truck that's supposed to resemble a garbage truck, but it's really not. And, and so basically, because their mission in this museum is to investigate something that happened, and obviously monsters are about in the museum, and some funny stuff that goes on when they arrive, and and even when, Professor Broom and his adoptive son, Hellboy, come face to face, he's hiding the cigar that he was smoking behind his back, and I think Professor Broom just... yeah. Figuring out what's been going on, and Abe, because he has the capabilities of, sensing things, and he knows things about people, because when John was about to introduce himself to Professor Broom, Abe spoke for John. Yeah, so he would know everything about a person. Even by touching someone, he would sense and know what's going on inside of them, especially when he discovers and finds out what's going on with Professor Broom. So, he puts his hand up to a door, and as Abe says, behind this door, evil, ancient, and hungry. And obviously that means that, there is a monster lurking in the other room, and, Hellboy steps in and investigates. I just love it because one thing is that Hellboy, he's perfectly fine and comfortable just, taking on any monster. To him, it's just, And even when he encounters one of the creatures that's in this film, they are called, let me see, they're called the Samal, if I'm saying that right, the Samal. And it's nice to see because most of the creatures in this film, most notably the Samal in the first Hellboy film, they're sometimes practical. But of course there at times would be some shots with those creatures and big creatures where, yeah, they would be CG. Not to mention, there were a couple of shots where Hellboy and Abe had to be CG. Even one shot of Hellboy's stoned hand, until I get to that. But yeah, Hellboy coming face to face with the Samal. I think, yeah, I am saying that right. And Abe going through and, and describing what it is. And even when Hellboy, is taking on the Samal, and pardon my French, kicking its ass, literally. And you think that, and he thinks that, well, problem solved. He took care of it. He defeated it. Well, it's unstoppable. It can resurrect, and thus it does. And still attacking Hellboy and causing Hellboy to fly and break out of a window, and, well, the biggest chance for them being out in public. And yeah, the Samal running away, John stepping in, helping out Hellboy, because the tongue of the Samal, it wraps around Hellboy's regular hand, not the stoned hand, and it burns him like acid. Even at one point before that, because Hellboy did encounter Rasputin. Rasputin showed up at one point. Hellboy recognized the voice, and Rasputin was hinting and telling him about, what's going to happen and such, and his purpose, and who his real name is. Yeah. And why he has that stoned hand. So yeah. And so, yeah, again, John helping out. He helps shoot the Samao, and even, for Hellboy, he likes to, be a hero alone. But hey, there are times where Hellboy would need more than just himself to take on a threat. So then, even this like sucker kind of little creature, obviously that came from the Samao, was on Hellboy's arm. He took it off, and thus he chased after the Samao. And thus, because when chasing the Samao, and, well, right in front of, civilians, and again, because the fact that Halloween is taking place, and John trying to make it look like and tell to the people, great costumes, huh? Trick or treat? So, yeah. And, yeah, the Samao gets down underground and in a subway tunnel. John was almost about to get hit by a car, and Hellboy trying to stop a car, hey, red means stop, and punching the car and causing it to flip, but of course it lands back on, the tires. So yeah, I mean, nice to see, because even though John was starting to get Hellboy on his nerves, of course, he wasn't going to let John get killed, so... And so thus, still, Hellboy chasing after the Samao, and down in the subway tunnels, and of course a subway train, passing by, and the Samao getting on it, and Hellboy, still trying to stop the Samao, and eventually he does by, he finally kills it, and, well... afterwards, because then it just turns to crisp, and we hear Rasputin's voice, you rest now, and such, yeah. And then back at the museum, because Abe still investigating, and by touching a blade, he can see what happened in the past, before all this happened, and before, they were called in to investigate. Well, because Rasputin, the Nazi lady, and the one with the blades, they were there, and they basically were summoning, well, the Samaos. And Professor Broom witnessed it too, from Abe's vision, seeing in the past, by, touching Broom's hand and, both of them touching the blade to see. And after that, well, Abe discovers for Broom, what's going on with Broom, that is, he's very sick. And I want to say, probably because, they don't establish it, but I think it is obvious, Broom is, going through cancer, yeah, and, Broom telling Abe, I don't want Hellboy to know, because, yeah, clearly he doesn't want to let Hellboy know, and boy, because if Hellboy knew, and so after that, well, because now let's come to Liz, because, the reason why Hellboy previously was outside, and, supposed sightings of him that we saw early in the film, well, that's because he wanted to see Elizabeth, and, Liz for short, and as everybody, and most notably Hellboy, calls her Liz. Liz Sherman, played by Selma Blair, basically because, yeah, again, Hellboy wanting to see her, because, obviously they're in a relationship, and the thing is, Liz, she used to be a part of that paranormal investigation, but she turned herself into a mental hospital because her struggles and trying to control her powers. Because, again, she has the powers of, pyrotechniques and so on, and she's having struggles to control it, and again, she's in a mental hospital, and she finds out that, well, Hellboy is outside, because another mental hospital patient said something about Santa Claus being outside, which clearly that means Hellboy is out there. And thus, Liz and Hellboy, they hang out, and Hellboy at one point stole cans of beer from someone, and, he brought beer to Liz, and she did notice his burned hand because of what happened with the Samao, with the tongue wrapped around his hand, and, they have a bit of talk, and Hellboy asking Liz, convincing her to come back, but she can't. And she made the decision to turn herself into the mental hospital. And eventually, because they find out that, well, Hellboy once again went to see her, and thus they go to where he is, and he's starting to lose a bit of blood, and he, and of course he's taken back. John and Liz, they do look at each other for a brief moment, and back at the BPRD, Hellboy getting fixed up, and apparently because when he got wounded, it was a very, deep cut, because an egg was inside of Hellboy, and obviously because an egg of another Samal being born, and of course, Hellboy is doing okay, and they find out there was more than just one. Yeah, because later on, because we see that there were two more down in the sewers and, well, the subway tunnels, that is. And thus, later on, they go and investigate. But also, for John Myers, well, he wants to help out Liz and bring her back to the BPRD. And what happens next is, and to speed things up a little, because Rasputin, he's on to Hellboy, and he knows Hellboy's weaknesses. One of them, of course, being Liz. That's totally obvious. And we see, back at the mental hospital, Liz, she's, by this point, gone to bed. Rasputin, he snuck in. I just love that because, after a worker in the mental hospital is checking on her, the flashlight and such, everything's all right. When he closes the door, and part of it is dark, we see Rasputin coming out of the dark. Oh my gosh, that was awesome. And Rasputin causing Liz to have nightmares and for her to be triggered because of her powers. And we get a bit of a flashback when she was a little girl. Kids were throwing rocks at her and calling her a freak, and this caused her to, once again, just lose control of her powers and also, killing those kids and anybody else that was around her. And because of that, well, because still, in her sleep, she unleashes her powers and causing the entire mental hospital to explode. And the aftermath of it, well, because at the BPRD, BPRD, I gotta remember that still, they, of course, find out about this, and, of course, they know, well, obviously this was Liz, and it's not that, of course, she did it on purpose. Something clearly happened, and even though they didn't know it yet, so, and so for John, because it's up to him to try to bring Liz back in, and she's in, this, facility, I want to say, I don't know, just this room, and John goes in and introduces himself to her, and and eventually, because this managed to work, she was finally convinced to come back, just according to her, just briefly for a little while. So yeah, and also because with what's happening, trying to find the rest of the Samals, well, because, once again, Hellboy, Abe, and a couple of agents, including Clay, going down into the sewers and the subway tunnels to find the two other Samals and the rest of the eggs and so on. So, and to speed things up some more, because them down there and Hellboy, drops a couple of glow sticks down in the water, and Abe, going down there, he takes his gear off because sometimes, when he's out in public and when, they're on missions, he always has, some gear on, goggles and such. Obviously, there's a reason why, but yeah, but for him, he most of the time doesn't need that, even when he's back at the BPRD and, when he's in a tank, he doesn't need those goggles and such. So he goes down there, he takes his equipment off, and investigating, finding the Samals, the eggs, and so on. And by the way, because the nicknames for Abe and Red, I think, are, for Abe it's Blue, and for Hellboy it's Red. Sometimes they call Hellboy Red, but of course, his actual name is Hellboy. However, his actual name, well, we find out, and because Rasputin knows his actual name. And so, yeah, of course, the Samals popping up, and one of them attacking and wounding Abe. And as for the agents, there were two agents. I think let me see, some of the agents, because there was Agent Lime, Agent Moss, Agent Lime being played by Brian Casp, Agent Moss being played by James Babson, Agent Quarry being played by Stephen Fisher, and Agent Stone being played by Garth Cooper, Also, to mention them too, Sergeant Whitman, who we saw in the start of the film in 1944, being played by Angus Macinnes, and C.P.L. Malton, being played by Jim Howick, and the truck driver being played by Mark Taylor, so two of the agents, unfortunately, get killed by the Samals, and oh my gosh, because I think we could tell, especially what happened at the museum, what was left of those security guards, oh my gosh, and how the Samals kill and eat their victims. It's a shame for the two agents, and for Hellboy and Clay, because, well, it's not just the Samals that are down there. The one with the blades and the mask, he's there too, and Hellboy, trying to catch up to him, and Clay, trying to catch up to Hellboy as well. And, damn it, Hellboy, because Hellboy's too fast. And, well, it's unfortunate for Agent Clay because Agent Clay came face to face with him with the blades. He tried shooting at him, but it's unfortunate. He gets stabbed and killed. Supposedly, I think, because later on, because he almost survived. He barely is alive, but I think, and I'm not sure if, because the movie doesn't establish it, and I think we are all to assume that he did not make it when he was brought back in, for medical attention and so on. It's a shame. Agent Clay was a pretty good character. One of those characters, and sometimes characters like Clay, you have to kill them off. That sucks. Anyways, so, Hellboy coming face-to-face with one of the Samals, and a really cool action fighting sequence where, once again, Hellboy fighting the Samal, and when he first sees it, because it's dangling, it's, hanging up top of, the ceiling, and saying to the creature, "Didn't I kill you already?" And thus, they're both fighting and eventually making their way into the subway tunnel station, And once again, because some shots with the Samal creature being practical, that was awesome. Like, I tell you, because, in the later years, how far, the technology of making practical creatures came and such, just amazing. And what was brought to the Hellboy films, fantastic. And so, the fighting's still going on in the subway station, even when up top, a girl accidentally, left her box of kittens behind. She didn't grab it on time, and Hellboy, of course, grabbing the box of kittens, but still having to deal with the Samal creature, and, he grabs, of course, the tongue, wings it around, and, because clearly Hellboy knew what he was doing by keeping him there and letting the incoming subway train hit him, and thus, the Samal creature was done for, and, of course, Hellboy returning the box of kittens to its owner, and, that was a nice moment. And hey, because Hellboy having a thing for cats. And like I said, Clay unfortunately getting killed, and, Hellboy coming to Clay's aid. However, the one with the blades, Carl, that's his first name, Carl, he actually shut himself off, I want to say, and so he can be taken back to the BPRD, and once again, because it is mentioned that Clay was being treated and such, but Yeah, because I don't think, if I remember correctly, because again, the movie never establishes later on if he made it or not. So probably most likely, again, he didn't. That's a shame. And for Abe Sapien, well, he's put in a tank. He's being treated as well after being, very wounded. It's a good thing. It's a good thing, of course, that Abe survived. Of course, he'd have to. And there's a heated moment between Hellboy and Agent Tom. Yeah, again, Tom Manning being played by Jeffrey Tambor. Sometimes Tom and Hellboy, they're not on good terms. And Tom said something that, was kind of insulting and hurtful to Hellboy because, about, Hellboy's mission to capture any freaks and monsters that roam around Earth and, when they're done for and it's no more, the last freak and monster, gotta slow down, is him. And yeah, this of course pissed off Hellboy, and by just throwing something at him, just like, not trying to kill him, but still, unleashing his, his anger on Tom, just like, you piss me off, like, I want to punch you, that kind of stuff. And right when that was happening, well, yeah, because by this point, Liz, she came back and like she said, for a little while, and for her to return and to Hellboy just losing his temper. Bad timing. So, and everybody, they just kind of leave the room, and, well, of course, Professor Broom is unhappy, and so is Liz, even Liz commenting, nothing's changed. So, even John, being upset over Hellboy. But for Hellboy, just like, why'd everybody leave and such, Huh. Well, okay, Hellboy took it well. But of course, Liz and Hellboy are reunited, and Hellboy was at one point going to write something to Liz and tell her something. But right when he was going to do that, well, because Liz told Hellboy that she was going to go out for a cup of coffee with John. And this, of course, makes Hellboy become jealous. Even because, again, John being, as they said, his nanny, but there was more than just nanny, what they said to John, what John was told. John fixing him his dinner. And, of course, Hellboy, he's not hungry. He's not going to eat what John gave him. And Hellboy he was drinking from one of his cans and crushing it. And that one shot where he's crushing the can, his stoned hand, I can tell, and you could tell too, that was CGI. What? Why? Because could they not do it with the actual stoned hand that Ron Perlman was wearing? I don't know, because in the second Hellboy film, I'll have to go back and look, because I remember he did crush a can, I want to say. Maybe it was his stoned hand or his regular hand. I'll have to go back and look. But maybe there was a reason why they couldn't actually use the practical stoned hand Ron Perlman was wearing to crush the can. Maybe the certain way how it was being crushed, I don't know. But I'm sure there's a reason for that. And of course, Hellboy, once again, stepping outside, and he's on John and Liz's tail, seeing what they're doing. And, they did go for some coffee, and it seems going pretty well between them. But I think, yeah, John, he is kind of trying to make a move, I think, on Liz. I mean, also, funny thing is, because the coffee that John gave to Liz, and of course Hellboy can hear this, and he knows the type of coffee that Liz likes, and what he got was not the type of coffee that Liz likes, and Hellboy commenting on that, and I told ya. And then we see Liz taking John's picture, and this just makes Hellboy more jealous, she took his picture. She took his picture. Even when he's jumping on top of the buildings and he missed. That was funny. It's just funny, and it's funny because he reacts so calmly whenever he gets hurt and such. And that's the thing, because sometimes when something hits on his head, or if he gets he burns his fingers or something, he would say ow. But big falls and big hits, they don't bother him, but the tiny ones do. So that's funny. And back at the BPRD, and again, because Carl's body was brought in, again, the one with the black mask and the blades, like wearing those like type of gas masks, yeah, being brought in, and he's completely, naked, technically, and how we can sometimes see his face, it's very kind of stretched and such, decrypted, whatever, and those eyes, I tell ya. Broom is getting hints and clues, and more on, Rasputin and such. Something of number 16 and this being in Moscow, yeah. And, putting the clue together and such, and more evidence, again, of Rasputin and such, and Rasputin's early days, his early years and such, I should say. Well, at one point, because, when Professor Broom, he went back in his office, because Carl, he woke up, and, because when Broom was putting the clues together, and also because he had the song, Broom was having the song We'll Meet Again being played, if you know that song, and, think of, say, about that song, where you've heard it from. Oh, maybe, like, say, Stanley Kubrick's Dr. Strangelove and Stranger Things. Yeah, that song, We'll Meet Again. It's a really good song, definitely. And you know what? Very fitting and sad for what happens to Professor Broom, and right until I get to that. But coming back to, say, Hellboy, still, like, spying on Liz and John. Well, he meets with this 9-year-old boy, who, because I think, for him and his mom, they look after pigeons on top of the building, the boy joining in as well with what Hellboy's doing, even when, like, he could see what John is doing and having the 9-year-old boy look and see, because, the yawn trick, and putting his armor over Liz on a bench, and Hellboy, I think, throwing a rock or stone at John, and, it does hit him, and, like, who threw that, and, of course, they don't realize it's Hellboy, and the 9-year-old boy complimenting on Hellboy, nice shot. And back at the BPRD, because again, Professor Broom putting the clues together, and of course, he sees that, Carl with a K, forgot to point that out, is coming down the steps, I should say, and Professor Broom, him commenting, saying, I see the puppet, but where is the puppeteer? And right behind him, sitting in a chair, is Rasputin, and Rasputin confronting and interrogating Professor Broom, not in a brutal way or anything like that, just, having a calm, normal talk with him, and what is going to happen, and with Hellboy, Hellboy's purpose and such, and showing Professor Broom the future of what could possibly happen. The apocalypse, the world completely just obliterated in ruins and such, and these giant creatures roaming the earth, and Hellboy, of course, being there with his long horns and such, if that happens, and what Rasputin is wanting to happen. And I think, because Broom, he knows that this is not going to happen, and he knows his adoptive son very well, and Rasputin telling Broom, what Hellboy's actual name is, and Broom's response, I know who he really is, however he said it, and what I called him, son. Yeah, way to go, good on you, Broom. And, well, sadly, Broom, he accepts his murder / death. He allows them. He allows to be killed by Carl with, the blades, and, telling to Rasputin, I'm ready. And Rasputin, the last words he says to Broom, it'll be quick. And by the way, because that that Christ, like, necklace that Broom had, because, well, he, he was leaving it for Hellboy. And, well, as the song We'll Meet Again finishes playing, well, because Carl, putting the blade, literally, because, like, at the back of Broom's neck, and that stab. And, well, as the song finishes and gets to, but I know we'll meet again, and as his body, falls down, and the song finishes, some sunny day. Oh my gosh. That was such a really cool part right there. A really cool way in for that song, I tell you. And of course, it being a sad death, really. And coming back to Hellboy and the 9-year-old boy, I think, yeah, because the 9-year-old boy was having a glass of milk, and then, he shared it with Hellboy, and now Hellboy drinking milk, a glass of white milk, and the 9-year-old boy tried to give Hellboy advice, just go down there and tell her how you feel. My mom says, and Hellboy, saying, it's not that easy, okay? Plus, you're 9. You're not old enough to give me advice. Well, yeah, but still, I mean, at least the boy mentioned his mom. I mean, who says that, a kid like his age can't, and, for being that smart, I'm just saying, and then, well, a couple of cars from the BPRD, they show up, they find Liz and John, and the 9-year-old boy, saying, who are those guys? Hellboy turning, and, well, he can see that it's them, and, what he can barely hear down there, and, what John and Liz are saying, their response to them telling them what happened with Broom, and even though he can't really tell what they're saying, but he can hear Liz and John's reactions, his response, something's wrong. I kind of wish that Hellboy kind of said something to the boy right before he left, like maybe, thanks, kid? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. But I just thought I'd mention that because, you have those moments where, it would have been nice if they did this, So, yeah, a very sad moment when, the crime scene in Professor Broom's office and Hellboy showing up, and a moment where he puts his father's body in his arms, and then we have a rainy funeral, and that was cool how the way it was shot, because with those black umbrellas and them taking the coffin of Professor Broom to where he's going to be buried, and how Hellboy, well, he can't really actually be there, but he is up top of the building witnessing it. Even Liz noticing Hellboy, of course, he's got to be there. And Liz, we then see Liz having a chat with Abe, who's still in a tank, recovering from his injuries. And according to Liz, talking to Abe, Hellboy hasn't spoken to anybody in 3 days, and he hasn't slept, eat, and so on. Yeah, because after what's happened, it would take a couple of days for Hellboy to recuperate from this. And despite the fact Hellboy is signed on for another mission to Moscow because of what the now late Professor Broom discovered with, the clues, number 16, more on Rasputin, and where to find and locate him, and so on. Yeah. Liz trying to get help from Abe on what to do, and Abe, because he's not much of, like, however he said it, but, because, giving advice or whatever, and Abe mentioned that, for 2 decades, I only completed 2 sides, a Rubik's Cube, 2 decades, because, he only completed 2 sides, so, and, Abe tells Liz that, she needs to be there for him, and take care of that, big red monkey, so. And, yeah, because, unfortunately, Abe, he can't join in on this mission, and that's the last we see of him in this movie, and, of course, until the next Hellboy film. So, yeah, it's just Hellboy and Liz doing this mission in Moscow, as well as, some of the agents, including, John and Tom. Yeah, so they travel to Moscow. Hellboy, of course, is still going, and there is a moment between Hellboy and Liz, and Hellboy mentioning about her and John, even though because we find out later because Liz wanted nothing to do with John and such, and what Hellboy was thinking, saying some sweet things to Liz, that he would never, ever give up on her. Never. Yeah, because it shows how much Hellboy really loves Liz. And so, again, they travel to Moscow. There was a funny nickname that John recommended for Hellboy. And so they make their way to Moscow, and number 16, this being a grave site, Rasputin's, mausoleum, I want to say. Yeah, Rasputin's mausoleum. And to get directions to where they're supposed to go, in the graveyard and down below, because Hellboy, he uses a device to track someone that can help, someone who's already dead, and by, digging up a grave and such. Let me see, because that being, because it was nice to see that this was a practical effect, and a dead guy, a corpse, and Guillermo del Toro actually voiced that corpse. I can't remember the name. I'll put a text. So yeah, as I sometimes do. So Guillermo del Toro, he actually he does a couple of voices. He voiced the Samians, those creatures, and the corpse that helps Hellboy and the rest of the BPRD where they're supposed to go. And of course, the corpse speaking in a different language, and by giving them directions, they make their way down below, and because even Hellboy told them that, they need to stick together. But sure enough, some booby traps are set off, and, some walls they rise, and, yeah, some of them are separated. Hellboy with Tom and one agent, and Liz with John and another agent. Yeah, so they're split up. And what happens next? Because for Hellboy and Tom and one of the agents, I think, because if I remember correctly, because the one agent, let me see, because is it Lime? I can't remember, but, just, one of the agents, that's with Tom and Hellboy. Because at one point, where they made their way out, and this long straight bridge, because behind them the door shuts on them, and Hellboy tells them that they should keep moving forward, but Tom, he's not having it. He orders Hellboy to stop, because he's in charge. But dude, you should listen to Hellboy for once, especially for this. Hellboy knows what he's doing. Tom sometimes, but yeah, because Tom can be a jerk sometimes, but still, he's a loyal member of the BPRD, and especially there's a nice moment between him and Hellboy a little bit later on, until I get to that, of course. So again, Tom ordering Hellboy to stay put right there, and, he's in charge and such. Well, of course, chaos happens, even when, Hellboy looked down over the long, straight bridge and knocked over, a fence post, whatever it is, steel girders, knocked it down, it made noise, and the corpse, said in the different language, if I had legs, I'd kick your ass. That was funny. Even, because in different language and with subtitles, of course, it's funny. And, because Hellboy, lended the corpse to, the one agent that was with them, because the corpse was being too negative, so, and again, because Tom ordering Hellboy to stay where he is and such, he's in charge. Well, again, as I said, chaos is unleashed, and, this giant, seesaw hammer, whatever it is breaking the bridge bit by bit, and even causing the one agent and the corpse to fall down, to their deaths, especially for the corpse, his death again. And the last thing that the corpse says, I was better off dead, and so on. And, well, again, because, it breaking the bridge, Hellboy saves Tom by throwing and sliding him under, with the door coming down, and Hellboy just about made it. He made it, of course, I should say, and yeah. And then what happens next is they stumble upon this room, because where they are, because there's a lot of gears, and they come into this one room where Carl is residing, and they're trying to avoid these pointy things, and even Tom did get hit by one of them, scratched, and, he let out an ow, and of course Carl heard that, and he, of course, he hid, I should say. And of course, Hellboy once again taking on Carl, and even when Carl, he cut and wounded Tom a little bit, and Tom's response, hey, what's wrong with you? Seriously, Tom? Well, that's Tom for you, basically. And yeah, Hellboy taking on Carl, and yeah, this was Hellboy's moment, and especially when he said to him, you killed my father, and I'm gonna kick your ass, however he says it, and, he does succeed killing him because when he punched him down, we do hear Carl laughing, and that's because Tom and Hellboy, they're standing right on a booby trap, and, the hatch opens, and there's spikes down. Yeah, because spikes. And they were avoiding the spikes when they were making their way into the room. Hellboy just about almost got struck by the spikes. But, what happens next is Tom and Hellboy, they take care of Carl, and by knocking him down into the spikes, he, of course, gets stabbed right through. They stab right through his body, and Hellboy, to finish off Carl, throws a giant gear on top of him, and thus, he's done for. And then, yeah, a nice moment between Hellboy and Tom where, because, Hellboy, smoking cigars, always using a lighter for the cigars, and because by this point, the lighter has just about run out with it working, and trying to get the fire to be lit, Tom, tells and corrects Hellboy that, you don't use a match, you don't use a lighter, use a match. It reserves the flavor. And by lighting a match and putting it up to the cigar, and yeah, much better for Hellboy. And that was a nice moment for both of them. And Hellboy saying to Tom, thank you. And Tom, in return, thank you. Yeah, so they're okay, but still, sometimes, not on good terms, but again, that was a nice moment for them, yeah. Because, Tom should admit that, Hellboy has done so much, and you know what? Leave it to Hellboy, basically, so. And that's the thing, because that's happened in most films, and usually just let the hero do it. The hero knows what he or she is doing, Aside, unlike some of those characters who they think they know what they're doing, but they find out that what they're doing is stupid. You get what I'm saying? Yeah. And then we come back to, we see Liz, John, and the other agent, the agent that was with them when they got separated. John talking with Liz because, he now knows and gets, why Hellboy is mad at him, because Hellboy thinks, there's a thing going on between him and Liz. And Liz, in response, you want to talk about it now? And, what she says to John is, red, white, guys are all the same. And yeah, that pretty much says it there for John, his answer. So, and Hellboy did, of course, hear this. And then, at one point, Liz, John, and the one agent, they stumble upon, a bunch of other, Samao, yeah, I almost forgot the name, but yeah, they find a bunch of other Samaos and, eggs and so on. And for Hellboy, because, he left Tom behind. Well, Tom was safe, obviously, where he was at. And, Tom and Hellboy talking through the communicators, radios, and Hellboy coming up to where Liz and John were. And also because, when something happens, like, they're supposed to alert to Hellboy, by saying Marco, and in response, Polo. Well, I mean, that makes sense and it works. It depends, on the situation. But yeah, so unfortunately, it's obvious it was going to happen. The one agent with Liz and John doesn't make it, of course. One of the Samals goes after him. So much for that agent. But for Hellboy, because, yeah, she alerts Hellboy, Marco, and by crushing and pounding on the ground, and thus, he comes down, trying to take on the Samals, but he's, by this point, losing to them, and Liz, getting very worried about Hellboy, and tells John to hit her, and so she can unleash her powers and destroy all the Samals, and thus, he does so, hitting her hard, and thus, and she even told John, you better start running, however she said it. Yeah, because John has to run and get out of the way so he doesn't get burned. But Hellboy, well, he's fireproof. And as he said to one of the Samals he first fought, that he's fireproof. Well, because he's Hellboy. So she unleashes her powers. She defeats and kills all the Samals that are in there. However, I think this did knock out Liz, but also John as well, obviously, because what happens next? Well, the villains, they step in, the one Nazi girl and Rasputin. It's just the two of them now, because again, the one with the blades, he got killed, so it's just two left. John, he does wake up at one point, but yeah, because they do knock him out once again. He's tied up, and so is Hellboy. He's put, in a lot of chains. And for Liz, well, because, again, Liz being one of Hellboy's weaknesses, there was her, and there was also, clearly, Hellboy's father, Professor Broom, because after, Broom got killed, and what happened with Hellboy, that being his weakness, yeah, leading up to, well, Rasputin wanting Hellboy to open the gates, to open the portal, to bring these giant creatures to Earth, basically. And I think, yeah, because the creature, it's called Agurdu Jahad, if I'm saying it right, but, it's the best I can do, Sometimes, creature names, like, you get what I'm saying, and you know me sometimes pronouncing some words. Yeah, so again, Rasputin ordering Hellboy to open the gate to bringing this creature down, who I think, Rasputin establishes that this creature is the master to Rasputin, and if Hellboy does not do so, well, what's going to happen to Liz? Well, of course, yeah, Hellboy refuses to, and the unthinkable happens to poor Liz. Basically, Rasputin takes Liz's soul out of her and kills her, basically. And if she's going to come back to life, then Hellboy has to oblige, and he does so. And by saying his actual name. And Hellboy's actual name that he has to say, and, well, because by saying his actual name, his horns grow, and thus, he's back to what he is, and, and with his stoned hand, because his stoned hand being the key to open the portal, and with it glowing and such, Hellboy's actual name being Anang Un Rama, if I am saying that right, because I know I got the last word / name right, Rama. Yeah, by saying his name, well, because the chains that were on him, they come off, I should say, they detach, and thus his horns grow, and breathing fire and such, and he does so, like, he's basically doing this for Liz. However, because he needs to remember who he is, not to mention because Hellboy did have that, what his father left him, that necklace of the cross, crossed. Yeah, because took it out of Hellboy's hands, and right next to John, and even John shouting to Hellboy, "Don't do this!" And oh my gosh, like, poor John, because the Nazi girl, lady, like, hitting John with a hammer, God, that had to have hurt. Like, hopefully, because, like, it depends on the weight of the hammer, because that would have crushed his skull. Oh my gosh. But thankfully it didn't. Again, probably it's, depending on the weight of the hammer, but, still. I just thought I'd point that out because it's so obvious that you could tell that would have really hurt for John, and, well, it did knock him out, surprisingly, so anyways, Hellboy, he proceeds on, starting to open the gate, bringing this giant creature, and basically, this also has to do with the moon, because we see the moon and the eclipse. Yeah, the eclipse. Hellboy opens the first part of the gate, and he's about to open the second part of the gate, but that's when John, holding that necklace cross, shouting and telling Hellboy, and actually, because when he grabbed it, he actually did stop the Nazi girl from hitting him again by, using his feet to make her, trip, and hitting her with his own shoe in her face, knocking her out, and, telling Hellboy, remember who you are! And, and mentioning, of course, Professor Broom, of how much his adoptive father loved him and such, and Rasputin trying to, tell Hellboy, don't listen, and so on. But Hellboy, he of course listens to John, and he knows the right thing to do, he knows who he is, and he rips off his horns, and of course, the chance of proceeding on opening the gate ends. And, well, by ripping off the horns, he stabs right at Rasputin, slowly, he's slowly being killed because of the stab from Hellboy's horns, and Rasputin telling him that, he'll never, fulfill his power or whatever it is, and Hellboy telling Rasputin he'll learn how to live without it, and so on. And because of Hellboy killing Rasputin, well, this summons his master, and yeah, so, the creature, it comes out of Rasputin's body, because it was living in Rasputin's body, actually. And by doing so, because, yeah, again, coming out, and Hellboy, John, they escape, and with Hellboy carrying Liz's body, and she doesn't have a pulse, according to John, and she's not alive yet. And, well, it's up to Hellboy to, take care of the giant creature, and we do see, because the Nazi girl, Isla, if I'm even saying the name right, bear with me still, because of how much she loved Rasputin, being by his side, and, what awaits for them in hell. So, and they do get crushed, both of them, by the creature, one of his tentacles, I want to say, and Hellboy, again, about to take on the creature, and by this point, he's on good terms, and he's okay with John. And then we see one of the tentacles grabbing Hellboy, and thus, yeah, the battle begins, where Hellboy has to, well, put some bombs and such, because Hellboy did establish early on in the film that there was some weapons and stuff that he created by himself, and I think that was one of them, these type of bombs, and that will finish this giant creature. Even there was one shot where Hellboy was thrown in the air. I can tell, and you can tell too, that was CGI as well. And like I said, some shots with Hellboy and Abe Sapien where they were computer generated. For some specific shots, understandable. And the same goes for some of the creatures. Say, of course, most notably, the Samals. Yeah. And of course, and to speed things up, Hellboy, he successfully defeats the giant creature, and by, putting what to put inside of it, explosive devices, and thus, yeah, the creature is defeated, and Hellboy, trying to bring back Liz, and he successfully does so, and according to Liz, because she heard him on the dark side, or, whatever it was, the other side, and I think supposedly Hellboy was speaking to God, I want to say. It seems like it, telling him, to, let Liz go, and something very sweet and romantic, for of him bringing back Liz and such. Yeah, and that was very sweet, with what both of them said. And, well, of course, they kiss, and even when they're kissing, because, she unleashes her powers, and again, because Hellboy is fireproof. And we get one last bit of narration, this time from John, because the start of the film, because, like, Professor Broom was saying, what is it that makes a man a man? And John, like, saying something like, what is it, like, making a man, something to do with, what is it making a man, and so on, Okay, and yeah, that's how the movie ends, and we do get a mid-credit scene. We see that poor Tom, he's still there, and, because he was left behind by Hellboy, and obviously to, be safe, because could you imagine, because if Tom were to proceed on with Hellboy, not a good idea. So Tom, he's still there by himself, trying to, receive any signal and trying to, contact Hellboy and, Liz and John. We can even hear, I think, one of the Samaus still lurking around, supposedly. that was a funny mid-credit scene right there. And, yeah, just a great way to end the film, a happy ending, and a funny moment with Tom, of course. Yeah, a good way to end the first Hellboy film right there. Hellboy. What a great film this is. For this being the first Hellboy film, that was done by the one and only Guillermo del Toro, this being a dream project of his, and, Ron Perlman playing the titled character. Yeah, just, the story is great, the characters are great, the action and adventure is great too. Funny moments, emotional moments, the music, the practical and, computer generated effects. Yeah, just everything about the first Hellboy film is fantastic. A great, movie adaptation of a comic book hero that comes straight from the Dark Horse comics. Yeah, just fantastic. Hellboy is a great film for sure. And I'm giving the first Hellboy film, 10 out of 10 stars. Yes, 10 out of 10 stars for the first Hellboy film. And what about you guys? What do you think of the first Hellboy film itself? Have you seen it before? I mean, any of you who are familiar and aware of Hellboy, did you enjoy what the first Hellboy film had to offer? And, Ron Perlman playing the titled character, and as for the others from Selma Blair, Doug Jones, perfect casting, and from them, Jeffrey Tambor, Doug Jones, I could go on. Any of the funny moments and emotional moments were good. Any one of them is your favorite action sequence, and all that I've had to say. And what did you think of my review? Leave comments and give this review video a like as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of the first Hellboy film. More review videos are on the way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I'll see you guys in the next video / review. And stay tuned later this week, because the next film I'm going to be reviewing, it too is celebrating its anniversary. And let's just say, this movie has Billy Bob Thornton playing Davy Crockett. I'm sure some of you might know what it is that I'm talking about. Yeah, stay tuned for that. Take care, peace out, and happy anniversary to Hellboy.